Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Transformation Tuesday with Roger from Recover Your Heart. Today, we are going to dive into guilt and shame and some of the patterns that come up with that and what's connected with that. So, I hope everyone had a great week and enjoyed the full moon. Really good stuff coming in. Roger's just about to be with us. Perfect. Hey. So Roger should be coming on in 1 second. Hello, Andrea. Hi, Raj. How are ya?
Hello, Margie. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Trying to stay a little bit cool. It feels like summer today here. It does. It's like
It is
hot.
almost summer.
I know, but it's like close to 90 already. Like went from,
That's pretty warm.
yeah, instantaneously like that. So,
It's about perfect here, about mid 70s today, sunny.
yeah. Yep. That sounds nice.
Yeah, beautiful.
Did you have a great week?
Uh,
It's Tuesday, Roger. It's
yeah,
Tuesday.
it's rather busy, and I work Saturdays. Yeah, it's all been going pretty well.
Yes, it has. Good, great full moon. Got to spend it with some good friends and doing a meditation, which was fantastic. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, a lot of powerful energies coming in, a lot more expansion and just opening up, stabilizing.
Yeah.
I think the moon that occurred, so that was very nice. And a lot of people experience that people that aren't even involved with.
With this type of work. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you for that. We got a hello from Santa Cruz and they love what we're doing here. Thank you.
cool. Thanks.
So Roger, today we're going to dive into guilt and shame. So it's
Yeah,
a big one. Yeah.
that's pretty, yes, deep and heavy.
Yeah.
That's like the slowest frequencies we can align to here. Shame, in particular, guilt is a little notch up, but they are very powerful. Shame is a slow enough energy that we can't get out of it once we're in it sometimes without some kind of outside motivation. Perhaps we get angry,
Yeah.
just fed up with everything, with the pain that we're feeling in our life, or total surrender, like one would experience in recovery.
Yeah,
And
shame is a tough one because when you're in it, it is really hard to see out of it, right? And it's kind of
yeah,
tricky. It hides in like really interesting places, right? Yeah,
yes, and we don't always want to get out of it. My own experience, I spent many years in it, and just learned to be there, and kind of liked it actually. I enjoyed it for a part because I wasn't able, during those periods of my life, I wasn't able to experience joy and stuff. I had too much gunk I was carrying around, so
yeah.
I could feel through that, and then it gave me a story to tell people again, you know what I mean?
hmm
Always looking for approval in this, but it was the only way I could interact with folks at the time. So my ego wanted to hang on to it for quite some time.
So when you were in the frequency of shame or in that, how did you feel? Like, what did that look like and feel to you, and how did you feel it in your body?
Um, Pretty much like you're defeated. You don't care to get better at all. And it's just a very heavy feeling.
Yeah.
That's all I can describe. Very thick, slow. It's even hard to move around with the body, right?
hmm
You
Yes.
just don't have energy.
Yeah, a total disconnect, not just from yourself, but the heaviness and a disconnect from others, right? In a
Yeah.
really deep way. Yeah.
You're down so low that the will to live typically has to come from something outside. There's got to be some desire for some reason outside. Like for me, it was my family. That's the only thing that kept me alive. Basically, I didn't want to, check out because of them being there. So otherwise, you don't really care about yourself at that point.
No, that's true. Yeah. Or we tend to do things that aren't at all in our best, right? In our best interest. We isolate or do other things to cope, right? Either
Yeah.
drugs or alcohol, things like that. Even if you have the
Yep.
energy to do that.
Yeah. Using or
Hmm.
stimulants are always good, something to perk you up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're into substances and all.
Well, I know you wrote some things, so do you want to share? And please feel
Oh
free to
yeah.
have comments or questions at any time.
Um, I have two. I think I have several writings on guilt and shame, and both of them are quite short. One just came in yesterday. It was inspired by I did a post on how energy work can help with recovery on basmati. Ask a practitioner, and somebody asked about guilt and shame. So one came in yesterday, but a while ago I walked for, or I wrote one too, and it's very brief. It just describes the process that I went through, and it is. I've walked for long with head down low, so much guilt, shame, and gray. When you see me now with head still bowed, know with reverence it is for that which I am, no less, no more than light and love within. So, ooh,
Hmm.
there's a lot of energy in there
Yeah.
for me because I spent years in that. In the process with the energy work and recovery that I went through has taken brought me back to my heart and experience of the love that we are within. So it's just a couple sentences, but it's a huge transformation. The one that came in yesterday, much guilt and shame I've had to see through. No matter the moment, it was me deserved blame. Beliefs have been challenged, the past has been cleared, and allowed the way back to my heart once again. The love here is pure, only worthy is known. Divine I've been always. Remember that now. So that's kind of the same thing, but it describes a little bit about the process it had to go through with the beliefs, why I was totally unworthy. We have to challenge all of those. A lot of those may come from our upbringing, our lineage, maybe in the family already, or religious beliefs, can be past life stuff. So
Yeah.
when they come up, we can't just wish them away. You know what I mean? We can
Yeah.
ask our higher power or whatever to start exposing those things to us, but we have to confront them all and look into the beliefs that we have about ourselves, see where they came from, if they're even our own, if they're true or not anymore.
Yeah.
Very important. The easy way would be to sweep all that stuff away, right?
Yep. Yes. Push it.
And just return to leave nothing but the love that we are inside. This is where this is where we like to go, and letting go of it all gets us there. But some of it'll have to be challenged in order to start clearing the way back to our hearts. Some of the beliefs have to be challenged and changed.
Yeah. And when we're in that space of guilt and shame, as we talk about consciousness levels and frequencies, right? Um, we use a support system like each other if when we have fallen in the past into those frequencies, right? And
Mm,
to help us like see in our hearts and ourselves, right? So
yeah,
if someone is in that state, like I would prefer like I want to be angry almost, right? Like because you can raise your frequency. So there's different levels of that, and it's really challenging to go from guilt and shame to joy, right?
yeah, it's a pretty long stretch.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are some tools that you could share with everyone on when you're in that space of guilt and shame, even recognizing that you're in it, right?
Yeah, self-awareness
Mm-hmm.
is very important because we can be there and not even realize it, right? So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of this stuff is unconscious to us. So, and when we sit in it, like I said before, we have no motivation to go anywhere. So,
Yeah.
if you do recognize it, friends, obviously, and I always suggest support groups, right?
Yeah.
If you're ready to change and kicking your energy up like through exercise or anything,
Mm-hmm.
get out and chop some wood or something physical to get the energy moving in your body, right? This
That's right.
can help you shift up a level or two where you have the energy then to start pursuing some change.
Yeah.
Yeah. Angry, you can hit bottom.
Yeah,
just like alcoholics, addicts do. A lot of them hit a severe bottom, hit a total surrender, and then in the letting go process, willingness opens up to for something else from the outside to guide us a bit.
that's right. Yeah.
Um,
I know sometimes for me, when the frequency is low, I may not have enough energy to go punch a bag, right? Or chop wood.
yeah.
And so one of the things that I will do is like take socks and shoes off and lay on the grass, right? Or sit
Mhm.
next to a tree and just remember like that connection and even ask like Gaia and nature to help me, right? Get back to myself.
Right. Your higher power, yeah.
Hmm.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of help within, source or whatever it is if we ask for assistance and clarity, it'll usually come if we're open to it.
Yeah.
And let go of our expectations, how it may come. You may ask and then you may get a phone call from somebody. Come on, let's go have a cup of coffee or something. Set very simple things, but
But it's
help
true.
what
Yeah.
comes.
And sometimes when we're in that space also though, maybe we don't answer the phone or we don't recognize that that's it,
Well,
right?
you're at down at the bottom,
Yeah.
and that's not unusual. You just want to spend your life in a box or go to sleep
Hmm.
and stay within that sleep. So, what would you do in that case?
Me? Well, I
Yeah.
typically do the if I'm feeling that in a space, like I'd go outside, I'd punch something, I would, jump up and down, do jumping jacks, somersaults, anything. Usually, I'm a very physical person, Roger, and you know that. So
Hmm.
something like that, even if I am making myself do it because it's taking everything in me, that's what I do, right? Or
Yeah.
just surrender to the connection of that in nature. But either one works really well for me. I mean, screaming, right? Like pounding on a drum. Yeah,
Anything gets your energy moving.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep. Shake it off, and I'll do this, or whoa, where'd that come from? Look
Yeah.
like the goofy bird running down the street. You know what I mean? Um, do you want to read that?
I recently fell into shame after we worked with it. I found that I had to sit with it for quite a while and have a friend ask a lot of questions, and I felt like so much of, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Sitting when you start the process of working through these things and changing your beliefs and all and looking into them, sitting with it and feeling it out is pretty important.
Really
I
important.
probably want to do that on a regular basis. And then, of course, there's nothing like interaction or communication with another person.
That's right. Those,
Having that mirror, yeah.
she hit it right
Because
on the head.
sometimes we get wrapped up in our own stuff. We can get a little wacky, you know. I
Yeah,
was very extreme. We can get, and then short periods of time with another person can just really stabilize and bring clarity to things for us. So, and provide motivation.
yeah.
Um,
Andrea,
for me,
that's spot on. That's exactly how I feel too. So, I mean, if I have the opportunity to chat with someone, right, that gives me a little more clarity. What can come up when people are in guilt and shame is the not trusting other people and your worthiness to actually participate with someone else, right?
yeah, that can be very difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, you can stand. I recall standing with others and just being lots of guilt and judgment and
Hmm.
shame, and couldn't even look them in the eyes a lot of times. So
Yeah.
it's very initially you may have to sit alongside of somebody and not even look at them.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
that's true.
Just be
Yeah.
in their presence and somebody that's loving and willing to be with you at that time. A lot of people, although you can find company that wants to be around you, a lot of people don't care to be around those low frequency energies. So you'll
Yeah.
have to find somebody that is understanding. You know what I mean?
That's compassionate and understanding and holding a space from a higher frequency for you. It sounds like you
Yeah.
really need that. And in the communication with someone had was able to like go into the spots maybe where that shame was hidden, right?
Right.
Yeah. Which is really cool. Andrea, thank
Yeah.
you for sharing. because it is a tricky, Roger, it's super tricky. And we know this where we, I know where I feel it in my body in the past. I'm trying to even think when that was. So Roger, in your body, where do you feel it?
Shame?
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, most of my life, my third chakra area was just a knot. That's where I experienced almost everything, but the entire body basically
Yeah.
is just heavy.
Yeah.
But everything combined, the guilt and all, was usually in the stomach area.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this the other day. I can't remember the last time that was there.
I know.
Um,
Yeah.
it's like totally amazing.
Yeah. Really amazing. And a lot of times that guilt and shame can be linked to trauma, right? Past trauma,
Yes.
definitely lineage stuff, and just your could be beliefs from other people. Yeah, I feel it in second, third, too. I feel it like the lower four for sure, and that does not allow me to get the connection to those
Hmm.
higher chakras. Right?
Yeah. It's
It's
blocking everything.
it's blocked. It's
And your
blocked.
heart is typically, the heart is typically just wrapped, bundled up with energy.
Yeah.
So really not a lot of chance of connecting to it for any length of time at that point.
Yeah.
Uh, there'll be a lot of emotion that probably is going to be released because, the shame and guilt but just box us away from life. And we have this innate desire, drive to uh, be with other people and express and interact. And that part, no matter where we are below that, that part just is calling, longing to come out of us. So all the emotions from those desires get built up as well.
Once we
So,
recognize, or once that pattern is there, or that's a frequency that we are in alignment with, one of the practices for me was understanding that and knowing that I can almost do the opposite of what it is that I'm feeling at that moment, right? It's recognizing that I'm in guilt and shame. And instead of sleeping for 12 hours, literally doing the opposite right then. And even though it's maybe very challenging for me to do that, it's calling a friend and saying, let's go for a walk, right? It's
yeah.
recognizing that pattern is in us and accepting it, right? And then moving through it.
Yeah, once you're in a state where you can recognize it coming on,
Mm-hmm.
it's always our greatest power is in our choice. So it's just like calling the sponsor before you take a drink or something if you're in recovery.
Yeah.
It's right now, as soon as the first thought comes in and the first feeling of the shame, it's going to take you down. You can allow it to take you down. You go into the thoughts, the critical inner voice, and all of this such, and it'll spiral you right down. You may be stuck in there for a long period of time. But
Period of time.
yeah, you can once you learn to recognize it and then take action immediately. That's very, very important. Yeah.
Yeah, really important. I'm curious, Andrea, if you recognize that you were actually going into shame prior to it happening, or was it pointed out to you, or were you in it and then chatted with your friend? Right, Roger? Because that's like that for me, shame was a tricky one for me because I didn't know when I was in it or in guilt, I didn't know what it felt like, if that makes sense. Because I ran from my pain for so long, and from that I was unaware of what that feeling was. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I was just like I didn't know what I felt for most of my life until I started doing the energy work. Then things started to clear up. Once all the excess stuff was started to clear away, then I could learn to differentiate between different feelings. But I just knew I felt bad
Yeah.
and pretty much didn't want to be alive most of my life. So it was just a big ball of heavy and knots and
Yeah.
bad feelings. Had no idea really what it all was, but I was wrapped in so much stuff and this is kind of important too with the guilt and shame, the parts that we may want to hang on to, the ego, the victimhood, and all of this
Yeah.
um, kind of thing.
The
Uh,
worthiness, the
yeah,
victimhood. Yeah.
yeah, not wanting to let go all the time. But and that's where I was stuck for years. I kind of learned to like that energy and
Hmm.
wanted to be with it. So it didn't really matter what it was.
Yeah, well, that's what you were comfortable with, and there are
Mhm.
moments when we're working through these processes that it can be uncomfortable, right? It can be uncomfortable, even acknowledging that we are in guilt and shame, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one thing that where I really like partial to the energy work because when I started doing it, the exposure to the uh, faster frequencies within that, like unconditionality and love and compassion and forgiveness, I started seeing through those things quite rapidly. And I remembered then, I guess you could say I remembered what love felt like. And I came to places in there where it was our worthiness and
Mhm.
the love that we are, there's just no question. It's so pure and beautiful. Worthiness just unworthiness. It just goes away. There's no question of it there. It's like it's not even a part of the vocabulary. So this really started lightening things up and gave me a
Yes.
reference to where I was. But it took that and then looking at my beliefs.
Hmm.
A lot of these things, like my I was raised with a specific religion where there was just a lot of guilt and
Hmm.
I was kind of taught that if I didn't act, precisely in certain ways, that I was going to be punished.
Yeah.
And
In the
I don't
right
know.
way, right? Or yes, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that I was like flawed from the beginning. All these things you learn when you
Yes.
work with these fields that we're talking about. There, you realize that that's just not true. There's no truth to that whatsoever. That we're not flawed. We
Yeah.
we
But
may.
no, we're naturally compassion and love and unconditionality with.
Yeah, it's like what we're made of, right?
Hmm.
Love's like that's what we are pretty much. If you let everything else go, you're in a state that is just absolutely beautiful. And only when the mind and ego comes in is when that starts to deteriorate.
Yeah.
Start to cut that light off. Then, but if we can let everything else go, our worth is there's no question about it. You just know that you're um, of value and
That you are of value. Yeah.
yeah,
And that we're connected. And
right.
there's such a beauty in that. I wish I should have done a chart of the map of consciousness with where guilt and shame is and what that looks like. It's definitely helped me being able to see that, having a visual aid, right? And,
Yeah.
and understand some of the emotions and things connected to that. So I'm sure that, and Roger, we have a few things like that. We could share if anyone wants to email you and what that might look like, right?
Yeah, you can find that chart online. Also, Dr. David Hawkins' Map of Consciousness.
Hmm.
It's quite interesting, actually, and it shows all the different levels, energy levels that we move through,
Yeah.
what we have to move through to raise up, or what we spiral down through.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's a great tool also when you're working with people, or at least for me, to help them, like in a step-by-step process, be able to pull out of certain frequencies into the next one without gosh, it's been years, Roger, since we read that, hasn't it? Right?
Not me.
Uh,
I just looked at
I
it.
mean, I look at it all the time, but I mean, since the first time I did, oh, uh,
Oh, since the first time. Yes, it's
yeah,
been multiple years.
yeah,
So we'll talk a little bit about coming out of this stuff. There's multiple things to do. Like the first is becoming aware again. I always talk about the notebook.
yeah,
Pay attention to what you're going through. If you're feeling shame about something, ask yourself why, what the belief is behind it, and watch how you set yourself up in life. There can be a lot of like white shadow things and stuff that we do, right? And overcommit ourselves
hmm,
and make commitments that aren't our own truth. We really don't want to do them, perhaps, but we do them to be nice or something, so that somebody might like us or something. So we want to watch overcommitting so
hmm,
that we can follow through on all our,
Yeah.
You got to stay in line with your values and morals. You're the ones that are your own, so you don't fail yourself over a period of time. And then the self-care is very important. And go ahead.
Well, I was thinking about when the over obligation or doing things that aren't in alignment with who we truly are, because it's one, we're obligated or we feel like it's the right thing to do, right? Um, and there's a sacrifice of self in that, right? And don't, there's something
Yeah.
in that where you're giving up a piece of yourself for that. And I've often found that when that has been the case with me, I'm definitely in those lower frequencies for sure, right? And
Hmm.
it's a way to avoid my own pain and acknowledging that those are there, correct, right? And
Yes.
there's it when once I learned and actually understood and could see that by me doing that and not being in resonance with my heart and doing what was in alignment with me, I was actually causing more harm to the other people around me because of that.
Yeah.
Was that there was a huge freedom in that, Roger, of letting me, because the very thing I wanted to do or thought I was doing the right thing was infringing and actually
Yeah. Yeah.
creating. Yeah.
You're actually throwing out an energy link to try and get something from that person. Typically, I mean, if you're in shame,
hmm
uh, most of our interaction then becomes looking for some kind of approval or something, right?
Yeah.
We want to feel okay, and that's until we learn to that love, the only true love that there is within us, and we need to find it there. Of course, we can get it from others. It
Yeah.
can support us and all, but we're trying to look to it externally. We're setting up a connection, a
Yeah.
two-way tie from that person, and we're actually looking to get something from them. So it makes things quite sticky
We
and
can get really sticky and messy. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And when we're in those frequencies, we're actually engaging on that level with other people, right? That's where
sure,
it takes
yeah,
like somebody who can see, well, in my experience for me, is that communication with somebody who has either had the experience or done energy work or in some support group because they've had the experience. They know how to get out of it and mirror to you some beautiful things about yourself instead of perpetuating, keep going in that cycle of guilt and shame and then being angry at somebody and right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, of course, if you find someone like that to connect to, you may find someone that's on the same
hmm
resonance and in need of your need, right?
Yeah.
They may have a need to fulfill your need, so that's a codependency and all. But if you find once you work through a lot of this stuff, you won't get into
Yeah.
that pull will it just won't resonate anymore. So you won't take it on.
Yeah. You won't.
Realize the other person needs to take care of them, learn to take care of themselves, and that they have everything within them
hmm
to do that. They're fully empowered themselves. They just are maybe working through their stuff to remember that. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. And by us raising our consciousness out of those spaces of guilt and shame. So say we're around family members or friends that the pattern has been that way, guilt, shame, right? And then whatever else is going on in that dynamic. Once we start raising our consciousness and working through those frequencies, it creates a space for them and the ability for them to do that as well.
You're breaking free there, and then you're setting an example
Mm-hmm.
somewhat. So
Yeah.
that's the best thing you can do is work yourself, and that'll help free the rest of the family just by seeing what
Yeah.
you're doing.
Yeah.
And to see that you're no longer going to be there to continue that cycle
To play the
to play
game.
the
Yeah.
merry-go-round with them. Yeah,
Yeah. It unties all of those energetic binds for sure.
right.
Any other little tips you can give everyone, Roger, for guilt and shame?
Well, the guilt, I kind of see the guilt as an easier one to start with because you can just feel out things that you're feeling guilty about, things you feel that you've done wrong against your own values and morals. those will continue to pop up. And most of the time, if you're sensitive at all, you'll be reminded of those things. So, the inventory that everybody talks about, it's really important. I went through that all when I began recovery many years ago, but it was very freeing. A lot of the amends I made I was very surprised. People, didn't really understand what I was talking about, or I was amongst people that did the same kind of thing all the time. So it was okay. But there were people that truly appreciated my efforts. So energetically, it cut all the ties, and I was all my energy came back to me. So that was very empowering, and it gives you a lot of extra energy to move forward, right? So,
oftentimes we feel guilty about things that, when like we said, when you made amends, people are like, "What? I didn't even know you did that," right? Or I didn't.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Yeah, yeah.
Or like, I was so drunk, I didn't know what was going on anyway. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Most of the people I hung around with back then were anyway. So we all acted the same way, and nobody touched on right or wrong or any of that kind of thing. You just numbed it all out and went on about your business and kept it all buried as much as possible, right? Hoping it would fade away, but it doesn't fade away.
No,
it just builds up and builds up and builds up and closes off your heart. And
we create these walls around us when we've been in those lower frequencies, right? To protect ourselves because of things, sometimes for beliefs or things that happened maybe when we were younger. And so, we might have our guilt and shame wall and then this wall, right? And at one point we needed those, right? We needed that, or as a child, we may have used that to protect ourselves or whatever, right? And now those walls, if we keep continuing to do that and pushing it down, those walls end up being, we become locked in them. It's our own little prison, right?
Yeah, it just shuts off your life experience. I mean, you still have an experience, but it's very far from the potential, the beauty and everything that comes with interaction, open interaction with others and all. The freedom that a lot of people look for in recovery, it's beyond all of those things, you know what I mean? I spent quite a few very beautiful years in recovery, and it took me a long way, but I hung on to a lot of those things. I kept pulling them back in. So I had to, the energy work then took me a bit deeper, and the true experience of what was in me then is really what started turning things around.
Yes.
I became, I came to see where a lot of my beliefs and all were just totally false. Not my own, but
the energy work, I know we talk about this, but it really does, that connection that we all have, it created the space, working with it and myself, to remember, just like you said before, that unconditionality and love that I externalized before, but by doing that and connecting, it shined light on those areas and that space through the remembering and that heartfelt connection that I think that if I would have felt that any other way, actually, right? There was just this deep remembering through those processes.
Yeah, this is what I was talking about, the exposure to the energy fields that we work with, right? This is when we feel them, then we start to remember, oh yeah, this is what it's like without anything. This is what I really am. And then we start to see things from a higher perspective. And we're not only exposed to love in the, you got compassion and forgiveness, understanding, acceptance, unconditionality, non-judgment, all those different fields just rapidly can help you work through things. And
and to shine light on the shadow aspects, right?
And then you remember that it's within you. Once you remember that it's within you, then you learn to reconnect with it at any time. So this can accelerate the process even more. Learning that you're in charge, this is the higher power. And this is what this work did for me as well. I had some issues around God or something outside of me being more powerful. I saw it as a weakness. I didn't understand any of it. During my religious church times, I always wanted to be back out in the woods or fishing, so I'd doze off or
Yeah.
so I never came to believe in anything like that. The energy work totally defined and internalized the higher power for me because I saw it as energy then. It wasn't some being that was outside of me judging me that I was going to have to do something for, which now I have much reverence for it. So
Yeah.
I do things for it anyway, but I do it now out of choice and like love
Yeah.
because, but
'Cause
that
it
made
is
the,
like- yeah.
yes, I
Yeah.
mean, it's just beautiful. And I mentioned this more than once, but sometimes I just sit with the energy and it'll bring tears to my eyes. So,
Yeah. Me too. Yes, me too. I'm going to ask you one more time, Roger, to read the first one you read today. And I'm going to ask everyone to really feel into what he's reading and let that integrate into your heart and your space.
this one's actually difficult for me because there's a lot of energy in it for me.
Yeah.
So,
It got me too, Roger. It's really,
yeah.
yeah.
So when I write these, I actually go into where I've been, pretty much go through the whole process. So I have to go back and touch those places again, right?
Yeah.
So I've walked for long with head down low, so much guilt, shame, and gray. When you see me now with head still bowed, know with reverence it is for that which I am, no less, no more than light and love within. So that's it. Very brief.
But so
But
powerful and beautiful. And as you read that and I connect to that, and not just the words that you're saying, but the frequencies behind that, there's a huge heart expansion and just this humbleness in the awe and gift of being here and the story that we've told ourselves for so long that's not true. You
yeah,
can feel it like shifting, right? And really,
yeah,
right. Yeah.
that's a good point, really. From some perspectives, none of it's true.
Yeah.
The only thing that's true is what we are inside with everything else, right?
Yeah.
So, but I guess it all has its purpose.
Yeah.
Perhaps for us to come here and work through and work our way back to the realization of what we are, just so we really understand it all, and maybe to clean up past life stuff. Who knows?
Yeah. And future like lineage and ancestral stuff, right?
Yeah, we do that
Yeah.
as well. Generations behind and ahead. Work with our past selves, our future self.
Yes.
So, I want to talk a little bit more about the things we can do to.
Yes.
It's all of this has got to.
I want to, before you go on, Roger, I want to say something. Even reading what you wrote
Yeah.
shift your energy to a different perspective so you can start working yourself out of it. And so it doesn't have to take a huge thing. It can be a simple reading of what you wrote, Roger, and there's a shift that happens, giving you just enough to work with it and maybe take yourself outside for a walk or call somebody.
Yeah, bring some insights and charge you up a little bit or get you curious or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of these things around. You go on Facebook and you get blasted
Yeah.
all day long with things that can shift your energy very rapidly. But
Yeah.
you've got to come to a point of willingness to want to change, especially with the shame,
Yes.
because it's such low frequency. And there's really nothing until you make your own decision that you want to be different. There's really not a lot to be done. You know what I mean?
Yes. Okay, so continue on. You were going to share some other things. Okay. could work
Well,
with.
yeah, we got to, like I talked about before, pay attention to what's coming in, where the shame's coming from.
Mhm.
Is it based on our own beliefs, not living up to our own standards? Like we're not good enough for ourselves. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Or is it other people's stuff? We can let go of those things that aren't true for us. Um, and just look at those things from different ways. We can challenge critical inner voice when it comes in. And I want to mention this book.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. It's called Conquer Your Critical Inner Voice. Now, this is very important because it's typically our mind chatter that takes us down. One thought comes in and we'll go with it, and it'll spiral us right down to the bottom if we follow it out. So this book is called Conquer Your Critical Inner Voice. It's by Robert W. Firestone, Lisa Firestone, and Joyce Catlett, I believe. And it's got a system in there for learning about and dealing with the voice. So we learn to do this, challenge the voices, challenge our beliefs, and then watch our setup in life so we don't set ourselves up to do things that we're going to fail at, right? You know what I'm saying? And then be good to ourselves for a while. I'm not saying always take yourself off the hook for everything or don't commit to anything, but for a little while, just be cautious of what you commit to at all.
Yeah.
Make sure that you're not setting yourself up for failure, because the shame is just builds upon itself. I mean, it reinforces it. Every time when you're in the shame, you do something wrong again. It's like, yeah, you know what I mean? This just proves
It just proves how
um,
worthy I am and how bad I am.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we got to stop that cycle of self-reinforcement.
Yeah. Being good to
So
yourself can be a big challenge for a lot of people, right?
yeah, we often want to treat others better than ourselves.
Hmm.
That's always like still kind of confuses me at times. And I think
Yeah.
about it. So yeah, we
But
want people.
actually, in being good to ourselves, we are being good to other people.
Yes,
When we're in
actually,
shame and judging ourselves in that and allowing that inner critical voice to dictate our behavior,
yeah.
we that same energy is projected out to those around us that we think we are doing things for.
Right.
It's that cycle that keeps us pushed down, and it actually traps them as well. Yeah.
So that's the example thing again. Take care of yourself, your inner light, clear your way to your heart, and then that energy is what you carry around. So that just that field alone can do more good in 10 minutes than 3 hours of you messing around with another person trying to help them sometimes. You
Yes.
know, just being you with your own stuff taken care of. So
Or you doing things that aren't in alignment out of guilt and shame is I wish I could like explain what that looks like energetically to people, and how sometimes we do those things. We do something because we're feeling guilty, right? Um,
yeah,
and how what that actually looks like when we're working with people to someone else, right? So if I'm in guilt, Roger, and I come home to you, right, and I'm chatting it up with you, and I'm feeling totally guilty or in shame about something, but I'm overcompensating, right? Because maybe
yeah.
I don't want to be there with you, but I show up anyway because I feel like it's the obligation and the right thing to do. Energetically, what is that doing to you?
Ooh,
Yeah,
now I would get kind of ill.
yeah, yeah,
It's just yeah, very disturbed energy, a lot of turmoil within it, and a lot of projection
mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
specialness kind of thing. So
mm-hmm.
you start, it's like you attract what you resonate with, right? So
Yeah,
this stuff becomes clearer, and you'll have less of that. The more work, the more connected to your own heart you get, the more of your stuff you let go, the cleaner your life will get, because you just won't attract, or you'll have your boundaries will get stronger and such like this. So
yeah.
that'll be less of an issue.
So
to be able
another
to.
thing that I want to tap into just a little bit is if, okay, on this journey, Roger, of like your reconnection to your heart and this deep remembering and knowing of who you truly are, have there been times where you've gotten to that higher frequency and dropped back down and then felt bad that you dropped back down?
More shame and guilt sometimes,
Yeah. And
but as well, yeah,
yeah.
I went through coaching and such like this too. I've been involved in multiple things, so you learn to watch for those cycles and you learn to expect them
Yeah.
until you clear yourself to a point where you can maintain those energies. The faster frequencies, that kind of fluctuation is pretty normal.
Yes.
So it can take some, and there's periods of integration. You do an energy session, then you need to go through some integration. You might,
Yeah.
pop up and down for a while, but you'll usually come out at a little faster frequency then from another plateau to start from, right?
Yes.
Or another higher where you can launch the next time.
I wanted to bring that up because I know that oftentimes on this journey we feel like, oh, I should be here, right? And then that inner critical voice is like, why aren't I good enough? Why is this pattern happening again? And drops you back down. And it goes into that practice and recognizing, right, those patterns, but also working on not judging ourselves so harshly and being good to ourselves.
And not judging what's coming in.
That's right.
Kind of, if you see this from like, none of that stuff is really real. I mean, it feels real in our experience, but it's just energies. It continues to come in and we want to whack it, hit it with a stick to get rid of it or something, right?
Yeah.
And that continues to tie to it. So, and that in itself is another self-attack. We're whacking,
Yes. Yeah.
So learning to be with these feelings and all without resistance and like breathing them into your heart or realigning to your heart while these energies you're experiencing as energies and just see them as that energies. Yeah. And that can be challenging for a while, but this is the way that we work through them. We won't by avoiding them or trying to deny them or such, you know what I mean? So
yeah. Yes.
Understand that you're love at your core and everything else just needs to float away. That's like the magic answer, right?
Yeah.
Just let it go. Just let it go.
Yes.
But it can take a bit.
It can take a bit, and it's a bit by bit process, and it's recognizing those patterns within us, right? And just, we can jot down in your like an inventory of like things I do and patterns I've recognized that drop me down to guilt and shame, right? Like behaviors, my responses to things, and then write down some things you can do to help shift yourself out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the awareness again.
Mm-hmm. And it comes.
Got to be aware and make choices at the important times, right? Before you're taken down.
Yeah. Well, Roger, another really, really great one. I know guilt and shame's like a real heavy one. I want to thank you for the writings. Yes. And being.
Yeah. Interesting journey through guilt and shame.
Yes, it is. It is. But totally worth getting out of it, right?
Yes. No question.
Yes.
So go ahead.
I was going to say, people can reach out to you at Roger at recoveryourheart.com, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm kind of all over the place now. My email is Roger at recoveryourheart.com, at recoveryourheart on Facebook. I post all my writings there. Roger.recoveryourheart on Instagram. And I offer a free 30-minute coaching session if you'd like to talk, have any questions or anything like this, or you can email me. Yeah. And then what else? Oh, you want to mention that these go on YouTube as well after a few days of processing and all. I started that on my site, so
yeah.
And I offer remote energy sessions, individual, have a group going, weekly group as well. And Margie and I do a lot of the sessions together. We both have the same years of training and work together great as a team. We do. I have a unique modality called Grace Recovery that was developed for recovery to work through many different aspects that are involved. And we do remote clearings, individual or together,
Yep.
multiple different things. And the Sacred Self-Healing meeting I would like to mention as well. Yeah. Two of my teachers developed a 24-step program for overcoming ego and addictions. It's 24 like 20-minute meditations that are designed to bring us into our heart and raise our frequency a bit, work us through ego issues and all, and experience our inner divinity or higher power, right? Yes. Over time. I facilitate those meetings here in St. Petersburg, first and third Fridays typically of the month. They're an hour long at 7 p.m. at the Meta Center. You can email me about questions for those as well. We just relax and listen to the guided meditation, and maybe every now and then a tear maybe come up, and we have some good chat and good company. So thank you,
I just want to share real quick, Roger, that we have on Basmati's Facebook page, there's an Ask a Practitioner section, and you can join and be a part of that group. So you can also ask questions there.
Yes.
Which is fantastic.
That's right. It's getting quite a bit of interaction up there now, so that's cool.
It's really cool. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for being here. See you next week. And Roger,
thank you, Margie. Thanks, Basmati. Thanks, everyone, for joining.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.